Welcome back to another episode of Friday Night Frights. I am your host, Count Vampire. Today we're going to continue to read from scary stories to tell in the dark, more tales to chill your bones. Collected by the folklore and retold by Alvin Schwartz, and the drawings are by Stephen Gamel. Sorry, the fog is a bit thick in here today. Pardon me while I take a drink of AB negative. It aids the digestion in the mornings. This one is called Hello, Kate. Tom Connors was the only way to the dance, was on his way to the dance in the next village. It was a long walk through the fields and the woods, but it was a soft, sweet evening, and he loved dancing, so Tom didn't mind. He had gone only a short distance when he had noticed a young woman following him. Maybe she's going to the dance, he thought, and he stopped and waited for her. As the woman got closer, he saw that it was Kate Verity, and they had danced many times. Lucky for him. He called out, "Hello, Kate!" And suddenly he remembered Kate was dead. She had died last year. And there she was all dressed up for the dance. Tom wanted to run, but somehow it didn't seem right to run from Kate. Maybe you should, Tom. He turned and started to walk away as fast as he could, but Kate followed him. He took a short cut across the field. He was still followed. And he had turned to the dance hall. She was right behind him. There were a lot of people standing outside, and Tom tried to lose Kate in the crowd, but as he worked his way to the side of the building, then squeezed up against the wall behind some people. Kate followed him. And she came so close, she brushed up against him, then stopped and waited. He wanted to say, "Hello, Kate," just the way he did when she was alive. But he was so frightening he couldn't speak. Her eyes looked into his eyes, and she vanished. Wow. Has anybody heard of this tale? Of this folklore? Has anybody had a ghostly visitor to a dance? I know Vampire has. Danced all night long with this beautiful woman. And by the end of the dance, she was gone. The only thing that remained behind was her blue silk dress and white satin shoes. This one is titled The Black Dog. 11 o'clock at night, Peter Rothberg was in bed on the second floor of the old house where he lived alone. It had gotten chilly, So he went downstairs to turn up the heat. But as Peter was on his way back to bed, a dog ran down the stairs. It passed him and disappeared into the darkness. "Where did you come from?" Pete said. He had never seen the dog before. He turned on the lights and looked in every room. He could not find the dog anywhere. He went outside and brought in 2 watchdogs he kept in the backyard, but they acted as if they were the only dogs in the house. The next night at 11 o'clock, Peter was in the bedroom. He heard a sound like a dog walking around the room above him. He dashed upstairs and threw open the door. The room was empty. He looked under the bed, he looked in the closet. Nothing. But then he got back into the bedroom. He heard the dog running down the stairs. It was the black dog. He tried to follow it, but again he could not find it anywhere it had gone. From then on, every night at 11, Peter heard the dog walking into the room above him. The room was always empty, but after he left, the dog came out of hiding and ran downstairs and disappeared. One night, Peter's neighbor waited with him for the dog. At the usual time, they heard it above them. Then they heard it down the stairs, and when they got in the hall, he was standing in the front door looking up at them. There is the beautiful artwork. I wonder if he left behind a visible doggy-doo. The neighbor whistled at the dog and wagged his tail. Then it was gone. Things went on this way until the night Peter decided to bring his watchdogs into the house again. Maybe this time they could find the black dog and drive it away. Just before 11 o'clock, he looked up to the bedroom and left the door open. When he heard the black dog moving around above him, the dogs pricked up their ears and ran to the door, and suddenly they bared their teeth and snarled and barked away. Peter could not see the black dog nor hear it. He was sure that it had entered the room. His dogs barked and snapped. They darted forward nervously, then backed away again. Suddenly, one of them yelped and began bleeding, and then dropped to the floor with his neck torn open. A minute later, it was dead. Peter and the other dog backed into the corner, whimpering. Then everything was still. The next night, Peter's neighbor came back with his pistol. They were waiting in his bedroom. At 11 o'clock, the dog came back down the stairs, and before it looked up at them, it wagged its tail. Then they started towards him with the pistol, and it growled and disappeared. That was the last Peter saw of the black dog. But it did not mean that the dog was gone. Now and then, always at 11, he heard it moving around above him. But once he heard it running down the stairs, he never managed to see it again. But he knew that it was there. Oh, scary, scary black dog story. This one is called footsteps. Imagine that. The apparition of a dog in your house that kills one of your dogs and then disappears. Then you step in invisible doggy doo. How do you... Oh, that's got the stink, invisible doggy doo. Okay, this one's titled Footsteps. Liz was doing her homework when in the dining room table, her younger sister was sleeping upstairs. Their mother was out, but she was expected back at any minute. The door opened and Liz shut, but the door opened and shut, and Liz called, "Hello, Mama," but her mother was not there. The footsteps Liz heard were heavier, like a man's. "Who's there?" she called. No one replied. She heard whoever it was walking through the living room and then up the stairs to the second floor. The footsteps above from one bedroom to another. Again Liz called, "Who's there?" The footsteps stopped, and then Liz thought, "Oh my gosh, it's in Sarah's room." She ran upstairs to Sarah's room, only Sarah was there and was asleep. Liz looked into the other rooms but found no one. She turned back down to the dining room, scared out of her wits. Soon she heard the footsteps again, and then coming downstairs into the living room. And they went into the kitchen, and between the kitchen and the dining room, slowly began to open. The door between the kitchen and the dining room slowly began to open by mistake. "Get out!" Liz yelled, screamed. The door slowly closed. The footsteps moved out of the kitchen, through the living room, through the front door. The door opened and shut, and Liz ran to the window to see who it was, but no one was in sight. Nor were there any footprints in the fresh snow that had been falling. You know, I believe that something like that could happen. There is no doubt in vampires' mind. Poltergeist activity is very, very real. Look at this one. That one's called Like Cat's Eyes. As Jim Brand lay dying, his wife left him with his nurse and went into the next room to rest. They sat in the dark. She sat in the dark, staring into the night. Suddenly, Mrs. Brand saw headlights came rapidly down the driveway. "Oh no," she thought. "I don't want visitors now, not now." But it wasn't a car bringing a visitor. It was an old hearse with maybe a half dozen small men hanging on the sides. Boy, they must be desperate for business. At least that's what it looked like. The hearse screeched to a stop. The men jumped off and stared up at her, their eyes glowing with a soft, yellow, cat-like eyes. She watched in order as they disappeared into the house. An instant later, they came back, lifting something into the hearse. They drove off at high speed, wheels squealing in the gravel and driveway flying in all directions. At the moment, the nurse came in and said Jim was dead. So, what do you think about these stories? Have you had any paranormal experiences, like a mysterious animal being in your house? Or footsteps that were unexplained, doors opening and closing? The vampire has. Not just in my spooky castle, but it has happened to Joe Motion. One night, Joe Motion came home late from work, about 11, 12 o'clock at night. He kept his daughter's hamsters in the bathroom because it was cooler back there than the Arizona sun would permit. The Arizona heat was intolerable, but the bathrooms were always cooler. The door didn't always close tight, so Joe Motion put the hamster cage in front of the door to help it stay closed, as to not have it pop open and disturb anybody sleeping. As he was undressing, he heard a loud bang on the door, and the hamster cage slid forward a little bit, and the hamster started squeaking loudly. He thought maybe his dog had bumped into the door. So he closed the door and moved the cage back into place, jumped in the shower, started getting washed. Again, the same thing, but it was louder and harder this time. So he thought his father was angry for taking a shower so late at night. So he rinsed off and went to bed, feeling kind of upset that his dad was so rude. The next day he asked his dad, "Why did you bang on the door when I was taking a shower?" And his dad said, "What are you talking about? I was asleep." True story. So, I hope you all have a pleasant night's sleep after these stories being told. Oh, vampire loves a good scary story. Remember, my friends, always ask before you bite the victim. It's the 21st century. We don't hypnotize. We get permission now. And always be kind to everyone. Be kind to yourselves. And especially be kind to animals. They know nothing but unconditional love. Until next Friday, for another episode of Friday Night Frights, Vampire bids you adieu. And if you like monsters and scary things, watch me on Monday for Monster Monday, where we will continue to look at the Sleepy Hollow story series of toys by McFarlane. So until then, best wishes that you will be here next week. You'll be safe if you hit that subscribe button and hit the thumbs up. It's good omen on you. Don't forget to leave me a comment if you so choose. Vampire loves to get back with you and talk to you. I won't come and visit you if you do that. So this is Count Vampire bidding you a good night.